let's go.
Let's go indeed. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 36 of UK League Chat. This time we're joined by Godsent duo Cboi and Mikmer. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Thank you.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. And let's just jump right into it really. So like I mentioned, they're obviously coming from coming off the back of the split that you guys had with Godsent, and I think, I don't think it's something that will come as a surprise, but it's, hugely above where you guys finished, or hugely above where I think a lot of people expected. Maybe not where you expected. You guys may disagree, but yeah, we'll get stuck into it. So I just want to start with basically how the roster came together, because when we've had other people on the show, we kind of asked them, well, similar sort of thing, how the roster happened, but it will be like, was this player here already, or was the roster, was it more or less built or not? Did you have the coach in mind? Blah blah blah. Obviously, it's quite different for you guys. That you kind of had that team with that had gone through, like a qualifier, and then sort of got picked up afterwards. And there was like a bit of controversy around it. People, were a bit kind of like hating on Godsent really for the way they did it instead of building their own team. So I just wondered kind of how that came about. Is that something that, did you guys expect to, when you were looking for an org, to get on an NLC team? Did you see that as being an option? And do you guys think that that you kind of belong there, or was it something that you kind of expected to get an offer like that?
Do you want to take it, Mikmer? Or
I can take
let's
it.
start with it.
So we all kind of made a deal that we would like search for teams, and then we would keep the qualifier as a second option because it was open to do. We qualified, and then a lot of us denied other offers, and then we just wanted to like smash the Danish league and the Masters and go into the NLC because we had players which, well, we think were pretty good and good enough to play NLC. So we decided to do that, but we had 5 players, and our ADC left us after the qualifier, so we had to find a new one, which was Heus. But the idea was always that we wanted to like qualify NLC, and we thought that our team was like more than good enough to do it.
I guess obviously we'll kind of get into it, but yeah, it did kind of show in the end as well that you very much did belong there. You said that the ADC had left, and obviously ended up with Heus. Was there ever? Did either of you guys get other offers then that you maybe thought about ditching at all, or you did you? Was that kind of your choice to stick with the squad, or what?
I had an offer from an LLC team, and I could take it, and it would be my spot. But I decided that I would rather play with Godsent. We were not called that before, but I would rather play the TESD with my friends, because I've been playing for a while on like a high level, so I wanted to have like one split where I could have like more focus on improving as like a main shot caller, because that's something I've been struggling with. So I decided to stay instead of taking the NLC spot, and then we got lucky enough that Godsent didn't have a team, so they picked us up. So it all worked out in the end.
Fair enough. And once the team was picked up then, and at that point you're obviously in the NLC, what were your expectations then going into it? Because I'm sure you would have seen then that, people didn't expect much from the roster. Most people had them, bottom in that group. I think we probably did as well. Like
I think we had you guys last. Yeah,
Yeah.
if we're being honest.
It's totally fine.
Yeah. So what did you guys actually expect? Like realistically, was it just sort of look for playoffs, or just just put up the best showing we can? Do you actually have like a set goal at all?
So I think it's really nice to like make an agreement of like what do we want to aim for this split, and we did. All of us got asked by our coach Vendetto, like what do you want for this split? Like where do you want to end? Where do you see yourself end? And I think almost all of us agreed that hey, a top 3 would be like very plausible. We knew Excel was pretty strong, and we knew Riddle was pretty strong, even though we beat Riddle I think in second week or something. Both those teams we knew were strong, but we were actually pretty confident like winning over the rest of the teams, and we actually, well, of course, ended up getting the third.
Yeah. So, those kind of like the tier list and everyone did, was that like even just extra motivation then? Like, because obviously you guys expected to be up there anyway. Was that even more like once you saw those, you're like, all right, now we've got to do it. Like, we've got to crack on now.
Oh, we had so much fun when everybody did tier list. Like all teams had to do a rating before the split started, and we were 100% sure every team would put us last, and it would decide what group we got in. And we were happy with the group we got because before the split started, we were like looking at the teams like BTXL, Fnatic, and Monster. They looked pretty strong on paper. So we wanted to get like in the group where there were only one of those three teams, and we got that. And yeah, like when everybody started doing the player tier list, like we were just having fun. Like we knew that people would rate us really low, and I think that was actually an advantage for us because people would just underestimate us. And like I had like not expectations, but I had hopes that we could make EU Masters. Because we had quite a unique style. Like we have Champion who has his certain play style, and I think we worked really well around that in the beginning. And then towards the end, we kind of adapted towards playing more for bot, and I think that worked well as well. So we could kind of do two things in the same game.
Cool. And yeah, it was mentioned then about that Riddle match in particular as well, because that was one where we kind of saw it. Like, I think it might have been when we were like doing predictions on an episode or something. We were thinking, you know, like there's a time for an upset. It would be right after Riddle were playing like XL as well, because you know if it was the case that they're not taking you guys as seriously as they should, they'll probably do more of their prep for XL. They'll be going over drafts for XL, and the fact they beat XL as well probably meant that they were probably overconfident and stuff like that. So. Would you say that was like the kind of at least of the regular season, was that probably the biggest win for you guys, or would it even be sort of the kind of maybe the Nordavind one towards the end? Was there sort of any sort of standout match?
I think the Riddle one was actually, I mean, the entire split, the drafts have been really like key, like if you were like winning or not. And I think the Riddle game, I think straight up the draft was just so easy for us compared to theirs that it made a huge advantage. And then I felt like I remember they played like, I think it was Senna Wukong or something bot lane, and they could just not execute it. So I think we won over them in draft, but I think the overall best match, I would actually rate the Nordavind one in the end. We had to tiebreak, even though it wasn't on stream.
Yeah, like
I think. Oh, so go on.
No, you can go first.
Okay, because I was thinking is going back to what Lee was saying is that like, so when you beat Singularity, I think a lot of people, which was right at the beginning, a lot of people were thinking, well, this is just how bad Singularity was. There was that, you know, Scood was what felt like was Intin in that game, and then you went into the Riddle game, and then that kind of, I think, shocked a lot of people because it was kind of like, it wasn't that just one team was bad and you were better. It was the fact that you were actually really good. And I believe that was the Ents game was the game I actually predicted Godsent to win. Was the week after, because I was like, right, this is it. Yeah, no, actually, I'm believing the hype. I think this is good, and yeah, it didn't turn out as well, but like, it did show that there was kind of, it was kind of like there were a lot of that early perception, and you kind of got rid of that very quickly, because I felt like if it was like an 0-2 that week, which I think a lot of people were genuinely predicting it could have been, or 0-2 those 2 weeks, it could have been a little bit more of a difference in kind of what was happening.
And one thing I wanted to ask as well, so obviously, you know, you guys were performing at that kind of level, and yeah, obviously showing that everyone else is pretty much wrong. I wondered if it was like the same with scrims kind of behind the scenes as well. Was it something that just came out like you performed that well on stage, or did it even show in scrims as well that that you were like, you know, well on par, or obviously better than a lot of the teams as well?
Okay, something fun about our scrims. We had Peterson who had the night shifts, so he would wake up literally on the time we were supposed to scrim at 3. Like we had to like like 50% of the time we had to call his brother to wake him up to come and play scrims. So like the first 1 or 2 games, they weren't always so productive. But we tried to play at 19 most of the times, but that was not always possible. So when we had to play 5 games at 3, the first 2 games they were never like that good. So we just tried to work on like communicating with the player sleeping, and like our scrims, like we're just 5 friends having fun, and like I never experienced something like this. Like when you go to other teams, they're like have these set rules that you're not allowed to have like fun, you're not allowed to joke in game, and we were not like that. We were just, even though we had a bad game, we would still like run around and laugh and just like make funny plays. And where on other teams, people would maybe get upset or frustrated that people were not taking it 100% serious, then we were just having fun and stuff. And I really enjoyed it.
Do you think that that kind of being friends and kind of getting along and kind of having this thing where you weren't put together by an organization, you were put together essentially by yourselves, that did help with what is quite a grueling schedule where you kind of need to get off and running quite soon?
Well, I
Steve's not
can.
many games.
No, it's not a lot of games. I think it helps a lot. I think a pro team, which I think, well, Sebastes is like G2 in the last split. They were like, it seems like at least they are like kind of the same dynamic where they have like a lot of fun, and it sometimes that just being friends creates this dynamic where we at least had a dynamic where we were good friends at the same time, and we could laugh and concentrate without it inflicting in anything, and we learned a lot.
I suppose it's like one of those things where, like not only if you're losing, it's probably easier to be among friends anyway. But then also, I think something that I'd kind of thought we'd see was like maybe that you guys would fall off towards the end of the split as well, because maybe other teams would eventually get the synergy that you guys would have started with, and should sort of catch up. But then it could be the same way. Like, do you think being friends even made it easier to improve? Because I imagine you'll know sort of how best to give feedback to different people. Like, some people prefer to be called out on if they make a mistake, or other people prefer to be encouraged more. So is that something where you guys kind of, it may not be something you even think about, it's just natural because you're all friends, but the fact that you know how to speak to each other to get the best out of each other as well, do you think that kind of helped to keep that level up as well?
Yeah, I would say so. Like it makes a huge difference that you know how you are supposed to let this guy know that he didn't have a good game. If you're a new team and you don't know each other prior to that team, like it can be kind of difficult to say, "Oh, you played this bad, and here's why." Where like you don't know how to say it correctly, like cause he can maybe get offended or something.
Mm-hmm.
But here, like we knew how to communicate, and I also want to point out that even though we were all friends, like we took it very seriously. Like we just had fun as well. Like whenever someone played bad, we knew how to communicate about it, and like I think Vendetta was a huge part of that. Like he came into a team that was already formed, and like he adapted really quickly to how we were doing, like how we wanted to play the game and how we wanted to be coached. And like he just jumped right in and became one of the bros. And yeah.
Cool. Do you think that's something that maybe more coaches could sort of try and take on board, that sort of style of like trying to sort of mold themselves to the team they're in then? Because I suppose a lot of coaches could have their own kind of like their own I'm forgetting the word, like their own thoughts on how it should be done. Like maybe a coach where they think that they're the ones to be respected. They're the final say, and you listen to them. Everything's done their way. Whereas others, like you say, like Vendetto, maybe he's tried to sort of mold himself to the style that best fit you guys. Do you think that's something that was just especially useful for you guys in particular, or do you think that's something that maybe more coaches should be trying to do?
I think it depends on like the team, because if you're a new coach coming into a team and the team already knows how they want to play, I think the coach should at least try to adapt to how the players want to be coached. But I think if it's a coach who has to build the team, I think he already knows like how they're gonna interact. And but I think like it really depends on the situation. But in our case, it was really helpful that Vendetta would or were willing to adapt to how we wanted.
I think a misconception is actually that like we were friends, of course, but like only Peterson and Cboi had played on team with each other before that. None of the other guys had played on the team with each other, so there was not like a lot of built-in synergy from the start. Other than the qualifier we played like 2 weeks prior or something.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so with Vendetta then specifically, why were we wrong not to put him as our coach of the split in our teams? Because I know that there was a little bit of a backlash as why we didn't put Vendetta as coach of the split. So why would you say personally, either one of you, say that kind of Vendetta deserved it over? I said Pad. Who did you say, Lee?
I think I said Nico the
Yeah.
Pico.
Yeah.
I think depending on like expectations of the rosters at least, I think our roster was still better, but I think it's impressive that this guy has like taken 2 rosters in the row now, which wasn't like looked upon like as like great teams. Last time he won the Nordic Championship with the Vipers team, roster which was not seen as a top team, and then now we made it to playoffs in I would say like way stronger league at least. But like we made it to playoffs with a roster which essentially was voted last on every list. So I think his results just speak for themselves.
We did.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I flamed Nico the Pico. I did flame the Nico the Pico pick. I was like, this Fnatic. But half of Lee's team of the season was Fnatic. So
well, going unbeaten is like it's harder than it looks, I think. But anyway, yeah, to be fair, we mentioned Vendetta on the episode as well. Like it wouldn't be a shocking choice, and definitely did do really well.
And those were the official NLC team of the season.
So far, yeah,
never made one, so.
We're the only ones still, so it is official.
We can tagline it. That's it. That's what we can do now.
Until they do one, we'll see. Going on then, so obviously throughout the split, you guys were you were in the playoff places, and then coming into like the last week, there was still the chance that Ents could have reached playoffs until obviously the Nordavind match where there was like the Mummus disconnect
drama.
And then he kind of said afterwards that he was like a few seconds late getting back, and Nordavind were happy to do draft or to go through it again. I just wonder what it was like from your experience of it, and maybe you don't want to say, but if you guys had any say in it as well, because and I'll preface it as saying that if I was in your shoes and they asked me, do you want to play the match or have to forfeit, I would obviously take the forfeit and get in playoffs. So if you guys had any option, I wouldn't blame you for taking it. But yeah, was there anything? Did you guys have any say in it, or was it just were you kind of as in the dark as they were?
We were like in the dark. Like we were told that Momos had problems, and if he wasn't back in, I don't know, I think it was 15 minutes.
I think it ended up being 20 minutes.
Yeah, then they would FF the game and we would get the victory. And it was 20 minutes before he came back. And they gave us the win. And then like 5 seconds later, Momus joined the lobby. As like they wrote to us that we have gotten the win. And then like we didn't ask to play the game because as you said, like we secured playoffs, that was our goal. And we didn't see any reason to take a risk. Like, I feel very bad for Ents that they got out like that, but we showed in our tiebreaker game that we beat Nordavind. So it felt a lot better after we beat them, because then I think if like there was one case where we could have gotten fourth without playing tiebreaker, and I think if we got that, then it would feel a lot different than if we didn't actually beat Nordavind.
I think the fact that, like, I think when you beat them, wasn't it on like, it was the sides had changed, hadn't they, as well, from what you were supposed to play? So I suppose would that have meant that even some of the prep you'd done was kind of, I imagine it's more something maybe for Vendetta.
No, we were on the same side. Like we
Right,
were,
in the same side.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. And we
Never
got,
mind
yeah, because we got to choose which side we wanted, because we had the quicker time head to head, because they FF.
then.
So like we chose red, and like all the prep we had done, like we could just go from there again, and we had a really good. I'm actually kind of sad it didn't get shown. Like both the game we played off stream were probably, like the Singularity one was probably the most entertaining game, and Nordavind was just beautifully played by us. Like we had control entire game, and yeah.
Yeah, we got told this with Torok about the Singularity game because it was just after I think the game had been played or roughly that, and he said that it was. He said it was a great game for the neutral. I think he was very frustrated with the result, but he said it was a great game for like a neutral.
Yeah,
he
like
wished
from the
it was on.
spectator's point of view, it was hilarious. But from like both teams, like it wasn't pretty. Like we were ahead and we threw our lead, and they just kept going to Nasher, like the Singularity special. Like you don't know what to do, just start Nash and hope enemy team doesn't find out. So, and we didn't ward the first Nash, so they got it like 20 minutes in game and it stalled the game for way too long. But yeah, it was really entertaining to watch. And after we won, like we also had like a great laugh because it was just so fun playing it.
Fair enough. So then with just going off the Nordavind one, obviously that we were talking about how that got into playoffs, and obviously the tiebreaker even got you the higher seed. Moving into playoffs, and you were in that first round against Barrage, and what did you kind of expect of that? Because from having seen you guys playing obviously in different groups, so it can be maybe difficult to try and match things up. I thought you guys would look better than Barrage for most of the split, and I think I even predicted for you guys to win. But then when I was watching it, I just thought it was like kind of looked like a different Barrage. Like they look way better than what they had done in previous weeks. And would you agree that's maybe how it swayed the series, or do you guys think you could have done more? What were your kind of thoughts on that match?
For the first part, I think we never had such a difficult time doing draft. We kind of knew a lot of the players previously from the Danish scene we played in, and just like in general, we knew a lot of their players' champ pools, and they have like some weird champ pools compared to a lot of other people. So the draft was really hard compared to our own group to just make and like feel confident in. And at the same time, I feel what I called them in the split. I called the Group A the local group, or Group B local group, because all their games were like so messy in general. So it was like another style to try and like play against when we met them in the game.
And then
It was something which is really interesting because like you're not wrong. There was when you looked at the groups, they felt like two different leagues because the way that they were being played. Like one felt a lot more kind of like by the book, and then like so the other one was kind of just out there, and and it resulted in kind of some slower and faster games. Like I'm pretty sure if you actually looked at the leagues, like there was one league which was like definitively slower than the other league. One was just, and so do you think that then that was quite hard then kind of basically playing this game, playing this league competitively, and then going up against a side which hadn't been playing kind of the style of what you've been playing against?
Yeah, I think it was pretty hard because we were used to this slow and methodic play where you set up waves properly, you go to the objective, set up the vision, like all this, as you said, by the book. And then you end up against a team which and I think the entire group B was just like, they were so fast at like pulling the trigger on every play they could see, instead of like taking it slow and like making sure that everything was set up right, which we kind of tried to perfect. So I think it caught off guard, and then yeah, the draft, as I said, like it meant so much the entire split for all teams, and then we had a hard time for the draft against Barrage.
Fair enough. I suppose maybe one of the things that was like kind of like a what if is the fact that Barrage, from winning that, they went on to face Riddle, and they got basically smashed by Riddle, a team that you guys had gone 1-1 with in the regular season. So do you reckon, is it one of those where like you think if you had got through, then you could have put up a fight against them, maybe taken another game, and if you take one game, and then they're only one away from the loss, that could the mental could go, and you could nick a second one. So was that something, like, any kind of regrets there you didn't make it through, seeing that they got against Riddle, or do you think Riddle maybe would have won anyway? Because I think by that point they had actually looked a lot stronger than earlier in the split, and as we saw, taking games off Fnatic and getting into the final, beating Excel. So yeah, do you see that you would have done better at least than Barrage did against Riddle?
I would say so. Like, but it's also hard to say. Like the last game we played against Riddle, we also got smashed. So, like, Riddle got a lot better, like in the later parts of the split, and they also, as you said, they made it to finals. But I think we would have done better, like style-wise, in terms of like I think we could have taken at least one game against Riddle. But yeah, I think Barras was just like they kind of had a good style against what we wanted to do, because we wanted to have like towards the end we wanted to have champion on like a weak side carry like Camille or Jace, champs like that. He wouldn't mind picking them and then just playing on his own. And Barrage kind of played for top a lot. And we scrimmed some of the teams in the other group, and Barrage was one of them. And we had really bad scrims results against them. I think we played like 10 games and won 1. So that was not the like we
They're all in
came
the morning though,
to the
weren't
game.
they? They're all the
What?
morning games, right? Right.
Yeah,
It was a 15
that as
game.
well. Like, also, like, no joke. Like, whenever we played like late in officials, we felt a lot better. Like, also our tiebreaker game, they asked us what time we wanted to play, and we said as late as possible. We said like at 10, and we were so surprised no one actually agreed. And the same with Singularity. Like the games that were off stream, we wanted to play as late as possible, because we were at our peak at around like 9 or something. That's where we played our best games.
That's funny. So then, talking about well, so obviously that was the end of your guys' run, and we mentioned that Riddle obviously beating Barrage, beating Excel, getting that second spot and going to EU Masters, but not really getting very far. Do you think maybe a different side that you'd gone against, or well, actually it depends. Did you guys scrim against Excel at all as well? Do you have any sort of thoughts on their level? If maybe they would have done a bit better at EU Masters had they gone instead?
We didn't scrim teams in our group because that wouldn't make much sense. So we primarily only scrim. If we scrim teams from the NLC, it would be from the other group. But I don't think Excel would have done that much better. Like, I think the EU Master play-in, like that they don't have seeding, makes no sense to me. Like Riddle and LDLC played each other in a game who got to go to main event, and then I think it was Interpret Fox and Raccoon who played each other, which
I think it was Interpret Fox and Sector 1, I believe.
Oh, Sector 1, yeah.
Right.
And when you say those two teams against LDLC Riddle, you would 9 out of 10 times say that Riddle and LDLC are better than those two. So if XL would have gotten the same, like where if they played against LDLC, I think it's hard to say who would win. Like also the schedule Riddle had to play so many games. Like right after the day after they played finals, they had to play play-ins already.
Yeah.
They played like 18 games in a row, like just pure days.
Yeah.
They didn't have any scrims or anything.
And they also had to play on a new patch, like from the finals, and then to play-ins. Like they had to play Lilia got enabled as well, and they didn't. Pretty sure they didn't practice any Lilia, and I think she's quite strong right now. So that's something they also had to keep in mind, that they haven't played against it at all, and they don't know how strong it is. So do they ban it or do they not ban it? And then if they have to waste a ban on Lilia, then there's something else getting left open.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Also, you
Yeah, the
talked
problem
about
what
like
happened with the. Oh, go on.
you talked about earlier if like it was like if XL would have done better. I think again as we said, our group was like kind of similar styles, all of us, and like Riddle just like did better. So I think the best team from our group came through. But then as Cboi said, the seeding is just not very good.
So.
Oh no,
Oh.
go ahead, Tom.
Okay, right. So, a bit of a fun question. If then all the rosters were the exact same, say next season, when they're doing the because obviously they individually rank each other, the teams. Where do you think then you would go now? Because you said that you were probably right at the bottom. Where do you think they would have placed you then out of like the 10 if it was the same teams? Do you think that you'd be higher than bottom?
I still think people would put us around the bottom. Like I think most people think we just did a bunch of upsets and didn't actually play well. So I think also I've heard like from the other group that they think their group is a lot stronger, which I disagree with. Like they had one good team in the other group, Fnatic, that smashed everyone else, went 10-0. And they're saying that Group B is a lot stronger than Group A. I disagree with that, but obviously I'm biased as well. But I still think people would, like, out of the 12 teams, I think they would put us like
Maybe 10 now.
yeah, like 9th or 10th. They would
Yeah.
probably put us.
It's an improvement. It's an improvement.
It's an improvement. But when you consider that we got top 6, like third in our group, then
yeah, exactly,
still getting like around 9th or 10th, then yeah.
Well, I guess it depends. Well, I think they couldn't put you 10th with Singularity still. I would
No, but
think,
there are 12
then,
teams.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I had a funny.
Yeah, but I was putting Eminem bottom anyway. So like that at that point, that roster that was.
It depends. Are we talking by the end or at the start or?
Yeah.
There's
The
variables.
start, yeah. At the end, I actually think that roster's pretty good. Actually, that Eminem roster was really good at the end.
I think the thing about like the group B and the group A is like there was like clear like teams which just like I think it was like 3 points which made like playoffs for group B, but in our group we had to get 5 points to even make playoffs. And also I think our group, it's like you could take every team and you could like pick out something that was like really really good from that team. I would just say like quickly just ends that bot lane was. I think ends bot lane was fucking amazing.
Especially when it's Ezreal.
Yeah.
Especially when Kevo gets.
Yeah,
Like,
when Kevo gets Ezreal, he's really insane.
I think they did.
Bennett.
They did end up only winning with Ezreal, didn't they? I don't think he won on another champ.
I think they won on one other champ.
Ah, did they?
But like
Bandit.
Ezreal was like his go-to champ,
Yeah.
and like they were playing really well. And also Taiki, when he was playing Trundle, he was doing really well as well. So when we played them, like we banned Ezreal, Trundle, and I think we banned Volibear as well, because we were red side and Volibear was OP. And like then the game against Ens got a lot easier to play.
But just in general, I think like as I said, I think teams like Ents had like some strong, like really strong points as their bot lane. Again, Nordavind also made a really good playoffs run. I think. Having like I think everyone on Nordavind was actually like pretty decent. So.
What do you make of them then? Because obviously they finished 4th in the end, and they were one where we would have. Well, obviously we expect them to be top 3, but maybe even like pushing for 2nd, and they seem to sort of start off pretty decent, but then sort of fell off a bit, and in the end didn't really look that strong. To be fair, like what do you think they underperformed at all? Because I think especially on paper, like they do look a strong team, but I think some of them maybe, I don't know, they just didn't seem as good as we would have thought from the players that they've got, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it was interesting when they go into playoffs. I think they kind of went at least Ericsson as our mid lane. I'm paying a lot of attention to him. He just changed his style from our group to the playoffs. He began playing Akali and Sylas, which he never touched when he played in our group, and it just changed up the dynamic of the entire team, I think, and their playstyle in the playoffs. I think it just matched really well with the group B, so they began picking up some pace.
One thing I wanted to ask when we were talking about EU Masters before was about kind of on the topic of the seeding. Now we've obviously talked on previous episodes quite a lot just about the bullshit of only having 2 seeds in the first place, which is clearly a joke. But is that something that even sort of makes you maybe think about going to and trying in different leagues next year, unless there's an obvious change with it? Because when I'd seen
Greece is the one.
Yeah, because when I'd seen that there was 2 seeds, I thought, in a league with 2 academy teams, I think it's kind of good that Riddle have got in to prove that a non-academy can still make it. But I saw it that if it was BTXL and Fnatic again, then why, if you're a player that's looking to go to EU Masters, why would you come to the NLC? You would go to the Greek league and maybe try and get on a decent team there and have a much easier way in. So is that something that makes you think twice about still playing in the NLC, or is there, would you be looking at offers maybe in Greece or on a decent team there if there was one?
At least to me, it doesn't scare me away from the NLC that the academy teams are there. I think also this split I learned that the teams are they are really good, but they're not at the point where you can't beat them if you don't if you just keep practicing, learning, whatever. And the Greek league is I always had the feeling that they have 2 teams which actually can if you're not on We Love Gaming or Intrepid Fox, then the Greek league is doomed.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we've kind of I think Tom, you said it about the Polish league maybe even just being a top 2 team as well, and then we've seen their 3rd seed, not look great. And obviously we're a bit salty because it's one of the seeds that came from the UK and Nordic leagues. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see a change. Hopefully we do. Especially.
I'm just one of those people where because there's so much changing in how ERLs work that it shouldn't kind of go off a merit of performances, because literally it's not like the Champions League, for example, where you kind of have leagues and teams which stay most of the time for year upon year upon year. You look at kind of a lot of the sides, and some of them have completely changed rosters. And the level in which a league can change in terms of strength in an entire season. And so I'm not one of those where it's just because the Polish league did particularly well that season and has done okay means that next season they're still going to be strong enough to have 3 teams. And I think it's kind of proven that I don't think they really are, because Pompa I don't think is the greatest side, to be fair.
True. But yeah, obviously what you say about that, things changed in that, and with the NLC merger, obviously it was kind of a given that the team should be stronger, and no surprise that I think teams have looked a lot stronger than in either of the leagues that were there before. So I think it's only a matter of time before it opens up a bit and we get at least one more, but we'll see.
But I have to be honest, seeing how LDLC have performed makes me think, well, even if Riddle had gone in, when I looked at how Riddle smashed LDLC, I was kind of well, LDLC I don't think have performed too well as well. And it kind of made me think, okay, how strong actually was Riddle if they had even got into the groups anyway? So it did make me kind of have those questions as well.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe just touching on the group stage so far in EU Masters, obviously kind of with a bit of a focus on Fnatic being the one team left from the NLC. How do we see things
in the hardest group?
Yeah. So to be fair, I think we were maybe a bit worried seeing them go into that group, but they've looked alright so far. I only lost to Mouse, and I think was probably expected. And I think for me, if they do this, if they beat the same teams again, and even if they give another game over to Mouse, I would be surprised if that doesn't see him get through. Like, I don't know, Gamers Origin obviously beat Mouse, which was maybe a bit unexpected. Would they beat them again? I don't know. It's probably a bit less likely. I don't know. How do we rate Fnatic's chances of getting out? Do you think that they're on track, or obviously a win against Mouse would make things a hell of a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I think it's kind of hard. Like yesterday, Gamers Origin beat Misfits in the LFL. Like their league is running right now. So and they just beat Mouse as well. So I think Gamers Origin are looking quite strong, and I think Fnatic they can beat Mouse. I think Fnatic was maybe trying to play Mouse's style, like they put Maggie Felix on Renekton instead of him having like a control mage or Delusion, which I think he's a lot better at. His Renekton didn't look great, so I wouldn't put him on that again. But I think they can beat Mouse. I actually think Fnatic they can win EU Masters if they get out of groups. I think they have good chances.
Fair enough. And who else do we think is looking stronger then? Like Tom kind of touched on LDLC starting off, really not well. Especially that loss to Morning Stars was obviously a big surprise. And do you think even do you think the Italian league sides, do you think maybe they, because of the league they're from, weren't taking as seriously as they should, or do you think it was just a bit of a one-off upset?
I played for Samsung in Spring Split, and I think people are just heavily underestimating them because they come from Italy. Like, they are an insanely good team. They have their unique playstyle. Like, they don't care if they have to give up Drakes, and they really like if you take their towers because they really like freezing. And a lot of people, like, they're trying it right now, but that's something Samsung, we did last split as well. Like, we would just be happy when people took our tier 1 top or tier 1 bot, so we could just sit and freeze on GP, on Ornn, like scaling champions.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they hit their spikes, they know that even though they might be 2 or 3k behind, their comp is just so much better. And they know how to play their comp. So I wouldn't be surprised if they got out of groups. Like, their group looks really stacked as well, with Schalke, Kick, and LDLC. But yeah, I think they can get out of groups.
I think they abused the import system pretty well. They have like one Italian player.
Yeah, that as well.
But also yeah, that just makes like a lot of forward because it's like they played in Italy, but I don't even see them as like an Italian team as much because of the roster.
Mm-hmm.
But they are by far the strongest team I think Italy has maybe ever sent, if I remember right.
They had one. I think Outplayed got once top 4 in like one of the first year masters. But recently I think it was the first one. But recently I think they look really good, like compared to the last like YDN last split.
It was Raccoon was the second team from Italy going through.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between those two teams are just so massive that like, yeah, I don't know, they are really really doing well.
Yeah. Who do we see then as favourites, or basically who's playing best so far? Obviously, there's two sides that with perfect records so far in Movistar Riders and Misfits. Misfits maybe with a bit of an easier group though. To be fair, like you'd think only Giants would be the ones to put up a fight against them in that group. Yeah, who do you guys think are looking strongest so far?
Talked about the other day, no?
Yeah, Group B and like the strongest team in general, or
in general, yeah.
I think we predicted both of us Mouseport to win everything, and then they lost the game. But I think if they don't like let's say drop a game like that again, then I think Mouseport is still like the strongest team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Mouse looks pretty strong as well. Like, I think the only reason they lose if it's they get like too cocky. They know that they're really good, and sometimes they think they're better than they are. But when they're just living on the edge, like I think they're the best team.
I don't think that's much.
I agree that Mouse looks unbelievable, to a point, and I do think that the one that they're going to beat, if they're going to lose, they're going to lose themselves, and it kind of showed with how Prime League was right at the beginning. Like Mouse did terrible to start the Prime League because I think they came into this thinking that they were just going to storm the German league, and then they started to win loads and loads of games and kind of got back into the rhythm, and are the best side of the German seeds. I know that Misfits have got probably one of the easier groups, but I just think Misfits look really good. I just think with the way that they actually play as well. I really, really like them as a team in general.
I mean, yeah, the confident boost you can get from getting out like they do, this is also massive.
Yeah.
Also, in when they played playoffs, like they had to go from the very first game, if I remember correctly, and every single time, all the French casters rated Misfits not to win the game against Vitality, then not to win against LDLC, and then not to win against Gamers Origin. So they're also like the underdog coming out of LFL, and I think they're also playing really well. Like I watched the games in the French playoffs, and they look really good. And coming into EU Masters, I also expect them to go 6-0 in groups, because Giants didn't look that dominant in Spain, and the two other teams are kind of irrelevant.
Do you think it maybe even could help them that that the LFL is still going on? Like obviously they still have matches, like you said, this week, and that'll mean they're still not obviously keeping up practice. I imagine every team would, but the fact that there's still having that competitive practice, do you think that will help, or could maybe even see them fall off a little bit in week 2 if they are maybe fatigued or whatnot?
I think it can go both ways. Like it helps a lot more playing official games than scrims, and you're more motivated when you're when you have this. It's 2-week break, right? And you're not gonna play any competitive matches, then it can be kind of like not. It can be kind of frustrating, waiting so long to prove yourself again how good you are. And I think it can be good for the French teams, and also the Spanish ones, like Giants and Movistar. They're also playing right now. But then again, you're also showing. You have to be careful, not showing like if you have a secret weapon like champion that you haven't shown in officials yet, and then whether or not you want to show that to win your LFL game or to win in your EU Master run.
Yeah, that could be a hindrance on either end, really, I suppose. Because I would guess if they had something like that, they'd probably save it for EU Masters, and that could mean that they don't do as well as they hope in the LFL. So yeah, bit of a tricky one.
I think it's also important not to get burnout as well. Like we talk about it obviously with Riddle. Riddle was an extreme case at that point, but as soon as Riddle lost the first game against LDLC, you could see that they just plummeted. Like that was that was their limit, and so you have got a kind of edge on the air of caution as well. It may be good that they are playing competitive games. You don't want these players to get burnt out, and while they're seeing kind of everybody else doing scrims and kind of having these 2 weeks off or a week off, you don't want kind of. I think sometimes it can affect you a bit mentally as well when you know that these other teams are actually practicing, in a more relaxed environment, and you're actually playing your competitive season. So it really can work both ways. Yeah, that's why I do think it benefits Misfits because they do have an easy group.
Yeah, I agree.
True. Then from there, that was Anyone else? Well, with any other thoughts on EU Masters, even on the sort of the meta or anything, before we sort of move on a bit? There's not.
Nah, not really.
Really?
No worries.
Maybe I think like when you watch the LEC playoffs, like you see a lot more carry junglers. Where in EU Masters last week, you saw a lot of like Seth and Volibear. I think maybe when it starts again, people are gonna play like Evelyn and other carry junglers, and it's gonna be really exciting to watch how teams adapt. Like either they're gonna play the champs, or if they're not confident in picking the Evelyn, which can be quite a tricky champ to play in competitive, maybe see if they can find counters to it. So it's gonna be really fun to see how it evolves.
Yeah. Do you see
Actually,
that?
I was thinking about something now. The Lucian pick that has popped up recently. Like they played it a little bit. I know Fnatic did it in a game. But like in general, Lucian was just like it was LPL and LCK the last week. It just popped up everywhere. The prior on this champ has been really big.
Then looking at looking at other regions, then do you think we'll see any AD Kennen top coming out after the Shires?
Nah, I don't think so.
No, I won't hold my breath then.
I
Please
think
no.
I think with the jungle, you're raising a good point, and I think this is going to be kind of to a lot of people kind of a big moment for Dan, because I know a lot of people looking at Dan and thinking that Dan should be a player who potentially could be going into the LEC and should at this rate is on that level at this point. So it'll be interesting to see if he does kind of go for an Evelyn, or is he just going to go for the Graves, or I like because now he does have to kind of adapt a little bit to what I think is like. I think Dan's really good at facilitating other people. And he's really good jungler at that. It'd be interesting to see if he can kind of, have consistent carry performances in like a one-shot champion or a champion who, isn't just helping the team around them. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Then I would also like take a look at like Tunks, who had like did really well last year Masters. Tunks is like some people. I would like personally. I thought he was actually going to get LC after that one. But yeah, he like if the carry junglers begin like getting like you want your jungler to carry. I think Tunks and this, as you said, Dan, they're gonna be set up for victory.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how it goes. One thing I wanted to maybe touch on then before we start to finish up is just what your guys' plans are now moving forward. Then obviously we've got the longer off season now. Is there plans to maybe try and see any tournaments coming up over the off season and yeah, plans for that, and then maybe in 2021 as well, thoughts of staying in the NLC, or maybe try anywhere else. What are you guys thinking on?
You can start, Mikmer.
I can start. Okay. Well, I went LFT. So I would like looking for opportunities, of course. There's still like your master's still going, and there's a while before like some of the off-season tournaments starts. So, but yeah, I'll be looking to see if I can play in one of those, or else I'll just look to like self-improve and then look to play in the 20 or 21. Mainly NLC because I like this league a lot. I think they did really well. With like production and in general just the setup of the league. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure what I want to do. If like it also like I wouldn't mind playing NLT again. I would actually like it, but if I get an offer from like a different team in one of the other leagues, I'm not gonna like just instantly say no. Like I'm gonna consider all the offers.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, maybe just get your thoughts then on the NLC in general. Obviously, Mikmer, you just said there that you've quite liked the league itself, and I think for everyone involved, it's looked like the merger has gone really well, and I think the teams, especially like the level of quality that we're seeing, is much better than we had in either league. So yeah, just general thoughts. And do you both agree then that it has gone well? And what are your thoughts on kind of the broadcast and stuff then? Because we have kind of heard from both people inside, but also us as viewers. Sometimes maybe the broadcast hasn't been ideal, like especially the timings for it. I think for you guys that are an hour ahead of us as well, like it does seem like a lot of it is quite late. Obviously, you've said that it kind of helps you guys, but do you see any kind of improvements, at least from a player's perspective, that could be made?
I think we like all the teams were kind of like telling them, but the breaks were very long in between games, and that would make like a game we should play at 22 would sometimes first start at like 23 and make it really late for some players. So yeah, the pauses and just in general, just in general the time, like getting the games started at time,
Hmm.
that would
Yeah.
improve it tremendously.
Trying to keep everything at schedule because they schedule every game. Like they started with 1 hour each, and now in the last parts they had like an hour and 15 minutes because they knew that they were gonna be later, like because of production, and they had to have a lot of breaks. And if they can maybe remove some of the breaks between like after the analysis,
Yeah.
and then they have a break, and then they have pre-talk with about the new game, and maybe they instead of having another break there, they just immediately start the draft.
Yeah.
Then maybe that could improve some of the downtime.
Hmm. I think so. I think it's been like even kind of refreshing really watching EU Masters where it's just like back to back
Yeah,
games just straight away.
exactly.
And
I
yeah, like
realized. Yeah.
yeah, like you said there, Mikmer, with the NLC, like it would be scheduled. Well, for UK time, it was like 5 o'clock game, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and it would be like even the first game wouldn't start at 5 o'clock; it would start at 5:20, and then 6:40, and the whole thing would, to play like 4 games or 5 games would take like 4 or 5 hours, and then you contrast to the EU Masters where that's scheduled 1 game per hour, and they would have like 5 games scheduled 5 hours, and it's done in like 3.5, and you've watched 5 games in 3.5 hours, and it seems like it goes much quicker. Like maybe, yeah, not to like moan about it, but like to watch NLC, it will literally take your whole evening to watch 4 games that could be 25 minutes each. And yeah, but I agree. I think it's kind of like a common perception of the breaks in between maybe being too
Yeah, I
long,
mean,
and we'll hopefully see something done about that. I think it was Scoundrel said on Twitter it's certain stuff to do with the sponsors, like they have to have a certain amount of ad breaks, but I'm sure they could speed things
Yeah.
up a bit. I think
yeah,
especially
exactly. Like the breaks were like, as I said, really long. What else? I think they had a lot of small segments, and everything they did was like it was nice value to the production. I would maybe like to see like something like an MVP of the game or an MVP of the, let's say, week,
hmm
like them putting out maybe a little bit more of this. They used it in the playoffs. They began like using these head-to-head stats,
yeah,
which was pretty nice. So maybe a little bit more of like that value for every game.
definitely, and a team with a split at the end as well.
I think it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, a few of the split would have been nice. Yeah, like
We got those.
Controversially, we did
exactly.
get. We actually had I'm not sure if he's still knocking around Torek in the chat saying that he said a hashtag of Vendetto was robbed.
I saw.
Maybe he was. Well, maybe if and when there's an official one, maybe he'll get in.
Maybe.
Fingers crossed.
What halfway through the spring split, it'll be the NLT summer team of the split.
Better late than never, Tom. That's what they say. Anyway, with that then, is there anything else anyone wanted to touch on, or any other topics, Tom? I think we're good to start finishing
I
up.
think
Otherwise,
there's one question I kind of just want to ask really, and like obviously you guys don't know at this point if you're going to be involved next split, but do you think that then we're going to kind of get a similar level as what we had in the summer as what we're going to get in spring next split, or do you think it's going to be a drop off because of the potential EU Masters spots, or do you think it's kind of going to be even higher because of the competitiveness of it?
I mean, esports is constantly evolving, I think, and I think more and more leagues are like building these, I would say, import super teams from a lot of talent we have in the Nordic. As I said, like SMS is just like one of the team, like other leagues where they made this kind of super team. Maybe the Greek league will do the same, and we'll see them smash there. I think it all depends on how much of the talent goes away and how much stays to like play in this league.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it depends on like if we get another spot at EU Masters, I think it can help draw a lot of the Nordic players from not going to a different region. I think also maybe some of the people that were out, they saw NLC and like they weren't sure if they wanted to give it a try since it was first time. and now they see how high the level was, and maybe they're hungry to show that they're one of the top Nordic players, and they want to come back and show everyone. But I think if we get one more spot at EU Masters, I think it's gonna help a lot, because it might like scare people away that we only have 2, and we have 2 academy teams. And most people just think that it's just gonna be Fnatic and XL again going to EU Masters.
Yeah. I suppose I wonder if, don't know, they could even maybe look at what happened to Munster and that. Do you think that could be off-putting as well, to see like maybe if for someone that didn't follow the league that closely, to just look at the roster and say, well, if they couldn't make it, then maybe the league is too tough. Or would you make a Munster in general? Like, obviously that was one. I'd imagine probably like you would imagine probably the third biggest budget at least.
Yeah,
like
we put them as
that was
correct. We talked about earlier about the seeding in the teams, and we were like, yeah, we had like XL, Fnatic, and Monster Rugby with like those 3 teams. We don't want to meet either of them, and we just like were aiming for the one group, where like the group where one of them would be in instead of 2 of them, and then we see that Monster Rugby is, well, yeah, they're kind of shitting the bed in the group, and not doing that well. It's kind of like this big budget, I would say star spec roster, like with Maxlaw and Unforgiven, even Sebex. And then, yeah, I mean, it was like a lot of star players just faltering because they didn't fit together.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think at that point we could probably call it for this episode then. Any final things anyone wants to cover?
No.
Good stuff then. Yeah, I think that's it for today. And thanks for coming on, guys. It's been nice to have you on. Nice to clear up the Vendetto drama once and for all. But yeah, good to have you on. And for those that are still knocking about watching on Twitch, you can follow the stream on there. I think we had maybe 1 or 2 follows as we've been going on, which is nice. Otherwise, if you're watching later on either YouTube or Spotify as well, you can follow there too. And all of our Twitters are on the screen as well for those watching either on Twitch or on YouTube, where you can see the image. Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter as well. And that's pretty much it. There you go. Nice, exactly right there, Mikmer. You got it perfect. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening.